She was so angry. She was going to tell my wife we were having an affair for years.
Police constable was dismissed without notice and placed on the national barred list.
He wore the badge, took the oath, and stood on the side of the law. But behind the uniform, he was hiding a dangerous double life: secret affairs, manipulation, lies layered carefully over years of deception. One text message exposed everything. Minutes later, in a quiet car park, a woman was left fighting for her life, and the man sworn to protect the public claimed it was self-defense. But was it? Or was this the moment a trusted protector finally revealed himself as something far more terrifying? Because sometimes the most dangerous predators aren't hunted by the law. Sometimes they are the law. In September 2020, a police constable was dismissed without notice and placed on the National Police Barred List. His career ended not with retirement or honor, but with disgrace. He would never wear a uniform again, never hold authority, never stand on the side of justice. But that dismissal was not the beginning of the story. It was the final chapter of a life built on deception. For nearly 2 decades, Timothy Keith Brehmer had lived behind a carefully crafted mask. To colleagues, he was competent and dependable. To supervisors, he was reliable. To the public, he was a police officer you could trust. And to the women who crossed his path, he was something else entirely. Timothy Keith Brehmer was born in Zimbabwe and later raised in Hampshire, England, by his mother and stepfather. He grew up in Andover, a quiet town in North Hampshire, where life moved slowly and reputations were built on familiarity. There were no glaring red flags in his early years. No dramatic incidents that hinted at what he would become. By all accounts, he blended in. He learned early how to adapt, how to read people, how to present himself as whatever the moment required. In 2003, at just 24 years old, Timothy joined Dorset Police. For him, the badge was more than metal pinned to fabric. It was access, authority, protection. It opened doors that would otherwise remain closed and gave him credibility that few people questioned. From the start, he thrived. He worked in Bournemouth, a busy coastal town where policing required both firmness and charm. Timothy had both. He knew how to speak calmly to angry members of the public. He knew when to smile, when to reassure, and when to assert control. Colleagues noticed it immediately. He was personable, one officer would later say. Charismatic, another recalled. He knew how to make people feel comfortable. By 2010, Timothy had moved into the roads policing unit. It was a role that required discipline and trust. Officers in that unit were expected to make split-second decisions that could mean life or death. Timothy handled it well. By 2020, he was seconded to the National Police Air Service at Bournemouth Airport, assisting with helicopter navigation and camera operations. It was a specialized role, one reserved for officers who were considered reliable and competent. From the outside, his career was a success. At home, his life appeared just as stable. In the same year he joined the force, Timothy met Martha, a fellow Dorset police officer. She was a detective, intelligent, focused, dedicated to her career. They understood each other's world. The long shifts, the missed holidays, the emotional toll that police work carried. Their relationship felt balanced, grounded in shared experience. They married in 2006. By 2020, they had a 9-year-old son and lived in Hordle, in the New Forest area of Hampshire. Their home was quiet, respectable, the kind neighbors admired from a distance. 2 police officers, a child, a stable life. The image was flawless. But images can lie. Behind closed doors, Timothy was not the devoted husband he appeared to be. While Martha poured herself into her work and trusted the man she married, Timothy was cultivating a secret life that ran parallel to his public one. He was unfaithful. Repeatedly. Habitually. Within Dorset Police, whispers followed him. Some colleagues later claimed they knew. Others said they suspected. Women spoke of his charm, his persistence, his ability to identify vulnerability and exploit it. One detective would later call him Mr. Smooth. Another described him as a man who preyed on vulnerable emergency workers. Still, nothing stopped him. In 2009, Timothy began an affair that would shape everything that followed. An affair that would stretch across more than a decade. An affair that would end in death. Her name was Claire Perry. Claire Perry was born on December 19, 1978, and grew up in Bournemouth, Dorset. From an early age, she gravitated toward caring for others. Nursing was not just a profession for her. It was a calling. She trained as a nurse practitioner and built a career spanning more than 20 years. By 2018, she was working at the Mayflower Medical Center, respected by colleagues and trusted by patients. She was known as compassionate, reliable, the kind of nurse who stayed late and checked twice. Claire was married to Andrew Perry, a police officer with Dorset Police. Together, they had 2 children and a life that appeared settled. But appearances, once again, were deceptive. Andrew and Claire's marriage had been deteriorating quietly. Long hours, emotional distance, the strain of 2 demanding careers pulling them in different directions. They tried to fix it. Counseling, conversations, promises. Nothing worked. Claire felt unseen, lonely, disconnected. She wanted to feel valued again. And that was when Timothy entered her life. Exactly how their affair began remains unclear. A social event, mutual colleagues, a chance encounter. What mattered was not how it started, but how deeply it entangled them. Around 2010, a line was crossed. At first, the relationship felt intoxicating. Timothy knew how to make women feel special. He listened. He complimented. He promised. One former lover would later say he lifted her up, placed her on a pedestal, and made her believe she was everything he wanted. For Claire, the affair filled a void her marriage no longer could. She believed the connection was real. She believed Timothy would leave his wife. Years passed. He never did. The affair dragged on in secret for more than 10 years. 10 years of stolen moments. 10 years of lies told to spouses. 10 years of hope, resentment, and emotional dependency. Timothy had mastered the art of compartmentalization. He enjoyed the control, the thrill, the ability to juggle multiple lives without consequences. And Claire was not the only woman. By early 2020, Claire's marriage to Andrew had collapsed entirely. They slept in separate beds. Counseling had failed again. Andrew decided to leave in March 2020. Then the world shut down. COVID-19 lockdowns forced them to remain living together, trapped in a house filled with tension and unspoken resentment. The marriage was over, but the ending was delayed. And during that time, Claire began to see Timothy differently. He was distant, less attentive. His promises felt hollow. Doubt crept in. Was she really the only one? On May 6, 2020, Timothy visited Claire at her home while he was supposedly at work. They were intimate, but afterward something shifted, a feeling Claire could not ignore. That night, she decided to search for the truth. Using a fake Facebook profile under the name Louisa Morgan, Claire began investigating Timothy's past. She searched for other women. Slowly, painfully, the picture became clear. There were others. One of them was Kate Rhodes, a detective constable with Dorset Police. Kate had unknowingly had an affair with Timothy between 2011 and 2012. She ended it when she learned he was married. Claire contacted her. The 2 women compared messages, dates, promises. What emerged was devastating. Timothy had been juggling multiple affairs throughout his marriage. Claire was not special. She was one of many. Kate described Timothy as a manipulator, a man who built women up, then tore them down. Claire responded with rage and heartbreak. He had promised her the world and delivered nothing. By the evening of May 6th, Claire had reached her breaking point. For 2 days, she messaged Timothy repeatedly, demanding answers, demanding honesty, demanding accountability. Timothy felt cornered. His lies were unraveling. His marriage was at risk. His reputation, his career, his carefully controlled world was slipping out of his hands. On May 9th, 2020, he made a choice. The Horns Inn sits on Christchurch Road in West Parley, a quiet village on the outskirts of Bournemouth. Its car park backs onto residential homes. It is the kind of place people pass without a second thought. That Saturday afternoon, it became the stage for tragedy. Timothy told his wife Martha he was going to work to collect steaks for a family barbecue. It was a lie. He briefly went to work to establish an alibi, then left. At 2:31 p.m., Timothy arrived at the Horns Inn car park. At 2:44 p.m., Claire Perry arrived. They parked deliberately away from CCTV cameras, away from prying eyes. Claire stepped out of her car and climbed into the passenger seat of Timothy's silver Citroën C1. Inside that vehicle, years of lies collided. Claire was furious. She had uncovered the truth. She had discovered the other women, the deception, the manipulation. She demanded Timothy's phone. He hesitated, then handed it over. Claire scrolled through his messages until she found Martha's contact. Her hands trembled as she typed 4 words. I am cheating on you. At approximately 2:47 p.m., she pressed send. In that instant, Timothy's double life collapsed. Witnesses nearby would later report shouting. A man. A woman. Voices raised in anger. Around 3:15 p.m., the car horn sounded 2 or 3 times. Sharp. Urgent. Then silence. Whatever happened inside that car was brutal. Fast. Irreversible. At 3:26 p.m., Timothy emerged. His shirt was stained with blood. His behavior frantic, yet controlled. She stabbed me, he told witnesses. But something felt wrong. And what lay inside that car would soon expose the truth Timothy had spent years hiding. At 3:26 p.m., Timothy Brehmer stepped away from the silver Citroen C1. Blood stained the front of his shirt. Not soaked. Not spreading. Just enough to be seen. Enough to be convincing. He moved with urgency, but not panic. His steps were quick, deliberate. His eyes scanned the car park as if searching for witnesses rather than help. When he reached a small group of people nearby, he spoke first, controlling the narrative before anyone else could. She stabbed me, he said. He lifted his arm, showing them blood. The gesture was calculated. He knew how people responded to visual proof. He knew how authority sounded when it spoke with certainty. One witness asked the obvious question. Where is she? Timothy turned and pointed back toward the car. She's in there. She attacked me. Something about his demeanor felt wrong. The words were urgent, but the emotion didn't match. One witness would later say it felt rehearsed, as though he had practiced this moment in his head. At 3:39 p.m., paramedics arrived. They moved quickly toward the silver Citroen, expecting a domestic dispute, maybe a stabbing. What they found inside the vehicle stopped them cold. Claire Perry was hanging halfway out of the passenger door. Her body was limp, her skin pale, she was not breathing. There was no pulse. Paramedics immediately began CPR, working desperately to revive her. They called for backup, for equipment, for time they did not have. Claire's injuries were catastrophic. Her body showed signs of extreme trauma. Timothy was placed in the back of an ambulance and treated for superficial wounds to his arm. He repeated the same story, over and over. She stabbed me. It was self-defense. She attacked first. But even as the words left his mouth, the scene was already contradicting him. Police searched the area. They searched Claire's car. They searched her bag. They searched the ground around the Citroen. There was no knife. Not hers. Not anywhere. Claire Perry was rushed to Royal Bournemouth Hospital. Doctors worked through the night, fighting to save her life. But the damage had already been done. Her brain had been starved of oxygen for too long. At 9:37 a.m. on May 10, 2020, Claire Perry was pronounced dead. She was 41 years old, a mother of 2, a nurse who had spent her life saving others. And now she was gone. Timothy Brehmer was arrested at the scene and later charged with murder. Still, he maintained his story. He insisted he had acted in self-defense, that he had been the victim. But as investigators from Dorset Police's major crime investigation team began piecing together the evidence, his version of events began to collapse. Slowly, methodically, inevitably. The first problem was the knife. 1. No weapon belonging to Claire was ever found. Instead, investigators discovered that Timothy had been carrying his own penknife. Forensic analysis revealed something damning. Timothy had used that knife on himself. The wounds on his arm were self-inflicted, carefully placed, not defensive, not chaotic. They were staged, a calculated attempt to manufacture evidence. Then came his phone. Shortly after the incident, Timothy had performed a factory reset on his mobile phone. Messages, call logs, photos, gone. Erased in an attempt to destroy evidence and control the narrative. But deleting data does not delete truth. The post-mortem examination would deliver the most devastating blow to his story. Dr. Basil Perdue, the pathologist, found that Claire Perry had not died from a stabbing. She had not died from a brief struggle. She had not died by accident. She had been strangled. 3 bones in her neck were fractured. The hyoid bone, the thyroid cartilage. Injuries that could not be caused by momentary pressure or accidental contact. This required sustained force. 10 to 30 seconds of continuous compression to her neck. Long enough to break bone. Long enough to cut off oxygen. Long enough to render her unconscious and cause irreversible brain damage. Timothy Brehmer had applied that force with his forearm or the crook of his elbow. And when Claire went limp, he did not call for help. He did not perform CPR, that he did not check her pulse, that he did not try to save her. Instead, he walked away, that he staged a scene, that he told a lie. On May 11, 2020, Timothy Brehmer was formally charged with murder. He appeared via video link at Poole Magistrates Court the following day and was remanded in custody. In July 2020, he pleaded guilty to manslaughter but denied murder. He claimed he had lost control, that he never intended to kill Claire, that it was all a tragic accident. The prosecution rejected the plea. They wanted a jury to hear the truth. The trial began on October 19, 2020, at Salisbury Crown Court. The prosecution's case was clear. Timothy Brehmer strangled Claire Perry deliberately after she sent that message to his wife. When his double life collapsed, he chose to silence the person who threatened it. The defense painted a different picture. A desperate man, suicidal, overwhelmed, pushed beyond his limits. Under cross-examination, Timothy's lies caught up with him. "You're a well-practiced liar, aren't you?" he was asked. Eventually, he admitted it. "I lied consistently." When asked how he viewed himself now, he replied quietly, "That's how I consider myself." The jury deliberated for just under 3 hours. On October 27, 2020, they returned their verdict. Not guilty of murder, guilty of manslaughter. The courtroom erupted. Claire's family was devastated. How could a man who strangled a woman with enough force to break her neck, who then lied and staged the scene, not be guilty of murder? The following day, Timothy Brehmer was sentenced to 10 years and 6 months in prison. Public outrage was immediate. The case was referred to the Court of Appeal under the unduly lenient sentence scheme. In March 2021, his sentence was increased to 13 years and 6 months. Still, for Claire's family, it was not enough. Timothy was dismissed from Dorset Police and placed on the National Police Barred List. He would never wear a badge again. But the question remains. When someone trained to save lives chooses instead to destroy one, when power and authority become weapons, and when the law itself fails to deliver full justice, was this truly a moment of lost control? Or did the system protect one of its own? And if this could happen here, behind the badge, how many other predators are still hiding in plain sight? What do you think justice should have looked like in this case?